Whenever we first embarked on our health journey, many of us, almost regardless of what changes we made, saw some improvements. Or as you continued that journey and started adding new therapies or new strategies, you continued to see new levels of improvement with regards to your health. But inevitably, one of two things or both of these things are going to happen. You're going to find yourself plateauing at a certain level of health that you just can't break through, or your list of to-dos inside of your health program is going to be so long and unmanageable that you just cannot sustain it. More than needing the next new tool or new strategy, what you probably need is a way of managing your strategies, managing your protocols, zooming out on all the different supplements, diets, modalities, and strategies you're using, and learn how to formulate a way to maximize all of these different components, but to do so over the course of time, not over the course of a day. And that's the dive we're going to take in today's video. If you're new to this channel, I'm Dr. Jason Saunders, and while we primarily talk about hyperbarics in these videos, today we're going to encompass much more than hyperbarics. I've been in functional medicine for over 20 years, helping thousands of patients, including working on my own health journey and that of my family's. And today, I want to talk about how to structure long-term health plans to make them manageable and sustainable so that you can continue to see improvements over decades, reaching the levels of quality of life and longevity that you're shooting for. We are most certainly living in the age of information, and inside the health world, there's no exception. New studies, new trends, new recommendations, new supplements, new diets, new modalities, they're constantly emerging. And if you're anything like me and you're excited about being on that health journey, you're often digging and researching and learning a lot of these new strategies that are coming out and figuring out how and when to implement them. Often as we're learning about these new strategies and we find the next exciting one that we want to implement, deep down we're also kind of hopeful that that's going to be the one. That's going to be the answer that we've been looking for to reach this level of health that we've been working so hard to find. But as you probably already know, there isn't going to be the one singular answer to any of our health concerns or any of our health goals. We're going to reach the level of health we're looking for by creating synergy between a number of different strategies, a number of different modalities, a number of different diets, a number of different supplements, all simultaneously in order to help reach that level of health we're looking for. And that's where we get stuck in this pattern of constantly adding new, never removing old, or even evaluating what's working, or how to create strategies around all these different tools and modalities in a way that's sustainable for decades, as opposed to weeks and months. In order to do this, we really need to zoom out and take a 30,000-foot view. And we need that 30,000-foot view both on our own health challenges as well as our health goals, but also on the different tools and strategies that we have access to and where their strengths and weaknesses may be. And then learn how to combine different strategies for different goals or different strategies for different concerns. As I'm sure you're well aware, building your health for the long term is a process. It's not an event. It's not something that we need to perfect and do everything we can in this moment. It's something that requires consistency over time and variation over time. Much like there are benefits from initiating a new exercise program. And as you get into that program and continue to be consistent with that program, you start to see the outcomes of that consistent exercise. Maybe that's improved cardiovascular performance. Maybe that's improvements in strength or flexibility. However, if you continue to do that exact same program every day, day in and day out for decades at a time, you will start to plateau in that exercise program, and you will even start to decline in performance with that exercise program because our bodies are always looking for the easiest and most efficient way to accomplish the work that we're asking it to do. And so as the body adapts and learns, we start to extract less and less value from that exact same amount and type of work. The same is true with any health strategy or any modality that you're going to choose to use. That's why when you started this diet, you saw incredible changes, but then those changes started to plateau or even reverse. That's why when you found sauna or red light or cold plunge, you found incredible benefits right away. And then you maintained those benefits for a period of time. And then you started looking for the next thing to add because you likely saw a decline in some of those benefits after a long enough period of time. But if we add something, get the benefits, plateau, decline, add the next thing, get the benefits, plateau, decline, add the next thing, get the benefits, plateau, and decline, all we're doing is creating a longer and longer list of something that will become completely unmanageable and not sustainable, in which case we get frustrated, we often give up, and then we stop everything. That can't possibly be the answer to long-term high quality of life or to pushing the limits of longevity. We need a system for understanding how to utilize and get the most out of each of these different strategies over weeks, over months, and over years. And that strategy is what I want to start to introduce today. That leads us to now evaluating you and your health concerns and your health goals. Almost without exception, even if you're on this health journey and you're pushing those health limits, you still have some health concerns. Maybe there's an old injury that hasn't quite healed properly. Maybe there's an underlying diagnosis that you've worked your way through, but the shadow of that diagnosis continues to follow you. Maybe you have none of those, but you have a family history of certain ailments that you know could likely end up showing up in your future. So first, we have to assess all of our health concerns and start prioritizing them. Which ones are the most important? Which ones are the easiest for us to work on? Which ones are the hardest for us to work on? Which ones are the most impactful for us to work on? Which are the least impactful to work on? And we could start prioritizing what we're trying to accomplish from a health concern standpoint. We could also shift away from health concerns towards health goals. Which areas of your health do you find it easy to work on that you enjoy? Which areas of your health do you actually avoid because it's difficult or it's hard or it's scary? And so you tend to shy away, hoping that being proactive in other areas will compensate for your lack of attention in those more important areas. Start creating a list and understanding what your concerns are and what your goals are. And I would prioritize them in two different ways. Most important to least important, easiest to hardest. And there's a reason for that. Sometimes the most important one for you to work on might even be the easiest, and that would be a great place to start. Sometimes you feel stuck or you've fallen off and you're trying to get back on the wagon, but you know the most important thing for you to do just feels impossible and daunting. In that case, it's also okay to pick the easiest, even if it's the least impactful, because it's a start, it's a beginning, and this is habitual. Success leaves clues. And if you start with what's easy, and when you have success there, it'll become that much easier to pick the next most difficult. And by the time you get to the most important and maybe the most difficult, it doesn't seem that daunting. It doesn't seem that hard because you've made so much progress in other areas. Next, it's really important that you understand all of your strategies and what their strengths and weaknesses are. Which modalities work really well together and which ones are actually pretty separate. In other words, there's great overlap between, let's say, red light therapy and hyperbaric oxygen. There's great overlap between fasting and hyperbaric oxygen. There's great overlap between red light and methylene blue. There's great overlap and synergy between cold plunge and sauna. There's not a lot of overlap between hyperbaric and cold plunge, as an example. There's not a lot of overlap between cold plunge and methylene blue, as an example. So which of your therapies are really synergistic with one another and which ones are really unrelated? And what impact do each of them have? Because then we can identify a health concern or a health goal, and we could start to pick from our now unmanageable and extensive list of strategies and start to pick the 3 or 4 that's going to help with that particular issue. And now we can spend 3 or 4 months working on that particular concern. As that concern starts to improve, and we start to make progress in that area, we have a decision to make. Is something else now the next priority? Or do we want to push that button a little bit longer before we leave it? Either way, whether it's your exercise routine, your diet, your supplements, or your modalities, I'm going to suggest that it's going to take at least 90 days for each one of these strategies to take hold on your physiology. Let's just say that every 90 days, you're changing your strategy, which means you're only going to get through 4 health concerns or 4 health goals, or maybe 2 health concerns and 2 health goals a year. That's fantastic. Making significant amounts of progress in only a few, but in a few really important categories is incredibly beneficial. And then next year, you could pick 4 more. And next year, 4 more. And the next year, rotate back the first ones. In any case, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You don't need to do everything you have access to every day. You just need to do everything you have access to over the course of years. If you take an approach like this, you can now chunk all of these different strategies, modalities, diets and supplements, whatever it is that you're looking to use in your healthcare toolbox, and you're now creating sustainable and long-term protocols to start chipping away at your lists. And if you did it that way, before you know it, a few years goes by and you've made tremendous progress. You have not found any plateaus and you've not found any declines in your performance or your health in that time because you're consistently moving the needle and you're consistently moving different needles. And as you can imagine, on some level, all of your health concerns and all your health goals are actually related to one another anyway. So even though you're focusing only on one, you're still moving the needle on others. And as you focus on the next one, you're still moving the needle on others. So you're never fully abandoning any of the goals or concerns that you have. You're also never necessarily abandoning any of the strategies, the tools, the diets, and the supplements that you have. You're just increasing and decreasing their usage over time in a sustainable way that allows you to not only be working on your health, but also maintain a job, be a husband or wife, be a father or mother, be a professional, and also find personal time for yourself. Not spend your entire day trying to make it through your wellness list so that you can achieve your health. In so many of those cases where I see people that are obsessive about making sure they do everything they can every day, they're more stressed about completing their list than they could even enjoy the life that they're trying to build for themselves. That doesn't make any sense. If I was really going to distill this thought process down into a single word, it would be hormesis. You're introducing a stressor so that your body learns how to adapt to that stressor and then become more resilient to that stressor. And then you're changing the stressor, becoming more resilient, adapting to it, and then changing it again. Hormesis is the lens that I view almost every health strategy through. Whether I'm helping a patient go from some sort of illness, sickness, or dysfunction back to better health, or I'm taking someone who's moderately healthy and we're looking to optimize, I'm still always looking through the lens of hormesis. If that word is new to you, or if you just want more information about hormesis and how to utilize hormesis in your health-related strategies, we did an entire series on hormesis. If you're interested in learning more about that, I'm going to leave a link here to the hormesis playlist. And we did a number of videos on hormesis and how hormesis relates to some of the different strategies that we're talking about in today's video. As always, I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this dive on how to cycle your health-related programs, and I'll see you on the next video.